right, we're going to go live in just a few moments here. Getting ready, just making some final preparations, and we're going to wait on, see if we get a few people in. I'm going to turn that volume down just a little bit. But, we'll give it to about a minute, and then we'll go ahead and go live. Just want to give some people some chance to get in. First episode in a while. Just got to shake off the rust and get ready to get into it, because we got a good discussion tonight. Where are we at? We're just about a minute in. All right. Welcome back to WMAC Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson. Welcome to episode number 127 of the WMA Report regular show. We're going to everything going on within the world of women's mixed martial arts. We've got a ton of news to go over tonight. I mean, an absolute ton, like 2 full pages in my notebook. Also, we're going to talk about setting and managing expectations for fights as a fan. If you're not managing your expectations, you're setting yourself up for disappointment if the fight goes bad. We're also going to talk about, I'm going to break down, how you should actually hold some fighters accountable when fights aren't as good. But the big thing is managing those expectations, and managing what you expect from certain fighters. But we'll get into that in a little bit. First, we've got some fights from this past weekend to go over. There was not a whole lot of MMA action going on this weekend, but what the freak was that? Hold on 1 second. Let me fix this. All right. Now we got that fixed. So, for the fights this past weekend, Sunday, we had Deep Tokyo Impact 2022, the 4th round. This is the fourth of what Deep calls their Tokyo Impact series for this year. And they actually had 2 of these shows in one day. This was the second one, the 4th round. And the main event was a strawweight bout between Emi Tomomatsu and Yuko Kiryu. Yuko won via unanimous decision after 2 rounds. I haven't gotten to see this yet, but the fight is up on Deep's YouTube channel. If you want to go watch it. My biggest gripe, and I mentioned this on Monday night. I believe it was Monday. It might have been Tuesday. No, it was Monday. That Deep has this weird thing where a lot of their fights, particularly most of the ladies' fights, are only 2 rounds. And then if it ends in a draw after 2 rounds, they have what's called a must decision, where the judges just pick a winner. And that's how Yuko Kiryu won. All 3 judges had it a draw and then had to do the must decision, which I absolutely hate. Make them fight a freaking must, what do they call it? Sudden death, basically. Have a sudden death round or sudden win round, however you want to call it. I hate the idea that you have criteria, you have scoring criteria for judging, and then because you limit the rounds that they're fighting in, that it ends up just being a pick 'em afterwards. I hate that. Absolutely hate that. Then on Monday night, this was also Sunday night. Sunday night, normally we had Combate Global. They're usually on Friday nights, like they have an event going on this Friday night. But for the Memorial Day weekend, we had fights on Sunday night. And this was a catchweight bout where Jade Durand on the left there defeated Marina Sanchez-Pichel via unanimous decision. I actually just did a full review video on this bout that you can go and check out after the show. But it was a good fight. I didn't have a whole lot high expectations going into this bout, but these ladies put on a good show. I mean, it was a low-level fight, but it was fast-paced, it was action-packed, and it was fun. So I had a good time watching this fight, and that's why I did a review on this one, because Durand was 0-2 going into this bout, and Pichel was making her pro debut. But I thought they did pretty good. for what they came into the cage with experience-wise. So that's actually it for the fights for this past weekend. So let's go ahead and get into the news. Like I said, we've got a lot of news to go over. I've got this page plus this page of news to go over. So strap in. All right. And some of this is like several weeks old because we haven't had a show in a while. So if you're thinking, well, you already mentioned that before, this is why. Anyway, we've got a UFC fight night on July 23rd in England. They booked a flyweight bout. Molly McCann is going to take on Hannah Goldie. Not a big fan of that matchup. It just seems like a squash match for Goldie. And then we have Road to UFC on June 9th. They're actually having like several days of these bouts next week for just finding fighters to get into the UFC down there in Singapore, leading up to UFC 275. But one of the days has a ladies strawweight bout. It's the only ladies bout on that series of days. Strawweight bout. Josephine Knudsen taking on Yadam Sa. I feel bad for Yadam Sa taking on Knudsen. Sa hasn't fought in about 2 years. She's taking on Knudsen, who is a beast at strawweight. Then we have UFC Fight Night scheduled for July 16th. They've booked Michelle Watterson versus Amanda Lemos at strawweight. Whoo! That's going to be interesting. That is going to be an interesting bout. Then on July 9th, we have a UFC flyweight bout. Marina Moroz taking on Sijara Eubanks. That should actually be a very interesting bout. Moroz is undefeated since moving up to flyweight. Eubanks has had mixed results at both flyweight and bantamweight. So we'll have to see how that one turns out. Then UFC also has a fight night scheduled for August 6th. They added a bantamweight bout. Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Stephanie Egger. Battle of unranked fighters, but this will be Bueno Silva's second fight at bantamweight. And then we have UFC, again, another bout for the July 23rd England card. Flyweight bout. Mandy Baume taking on Victoria Leonardo. Both of these fighters really need a win. I don't think Leonardo has fought since her debut loss to Manon Fiorot. And Mandy Baume is also coming off a loss in her UFC debut as well. So both fighters coming in looking to get their first UFC win. Then Invicta FC 48 is set for July 20th. They're going to have a bantamweight championship headliner. Tanisha Tennant, the champ, coming in at 4-1, taking on Olga Rubin, coming in at 7-2. This will be Rubin's official bantamweight debut. You know, she's a former title challenger at featherweight in Bellator, and then she last fought for Octagon in the Czech Republic, but that ended up being a catchweight bout because she came in on short notice. Then another bout for UFC's August 13th event. They added a strawweight bout. Yasmin Hauergi, who is making her UFC debut against Estela Nunes. I'm very excited about that one. I made an individual video about that announcement. Really excited that the UFC signed Yasmin Hauergi. She won the Combate Global one-night strawweight tournament last year, finishing 2 out of her 3 opponents. She is excitement. Then we have Bellator. No date announced for this one yet, but at flyweight, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane is going to be taking on Bruna Ellen. That is definitely Macfarlane lost what was supposed to be a tune-up fight for her and Justin Kish. So now we got what's probably supposed to be a tune-up fight for her again in Bruna Ellen. But Bruna Ellen's tough. She's not like that great, but she's very tough. Then we have Superior Challenge 24 on June 11th. Flyweight bout. Malin Hermansen taking on Anna Carolina Nascimento. And then another bout for the UFC's August 13th fight night. Bantamweight bout. Aspen Ladd taking on Sarah McMahon. That is going to be a bout of... How should I put that? That is a bout of underachievers at bantamweight. I mean, both fighters are top 10 at bantamweight, but I just look at both of those two fighters, and I think, man, they're underachievers. They really are. But McMahon is not getting any younger. I think she's like 42 now. So if she's making a run for the title, it's now or never. Ladd's still pretty young, but she's got to get a good run going too now, because she's had some setbacks recently as well. That's actually tomorrow. I can cross that one out. Deep 108th Impact goes down July 10th. They've added a strawweight bout. Kate Lotus Oyama taking on Mika Arai. Should be a fun one. And then Road FC is back. Road FC 61 goes down July 23rd in Wonju, South Korea. Added an atomweight bout. Jungwon Park taking on Yoonha Hong. Those are two fighters I followed their entire careers at atomweight. Park is a two-time atomweight title challenger for Road FC. She's coming off a loss in a championship bout against Yuri Shim. Hong actually has 2 wins over Shim, one at amateur and one in the pros. Winner of this bout likely gets to rematch Shim later in the year. So Jungwon Park taking on Yoonha Hong. That should be a good one. And then Centurion FC goes down July 2nd. They've added a strawweight bout. Danny McCormick, who's been a Bellator Europe mainstay, taking on Manuela Marcaneto. I've seen a couple of Marcaneto's fights. I watched her in that Palace Athena up in Canada, and then I've seen her fight for Combate Global as well. So that should be a fun one. And then FAC 15 goes down July 29th in Kansas City, Kansas. And that's going to be on UFC Fight Pass as well. If you added a flyweight bout, Chantelle Coates taking on Elizabeth Schroeder. So Chantelle Coates was on the Ultimate Fighter Season 30. Unfortunately, her weight was so far off that they were like, yo, we can't fight. We can't have you fight. You've got too much weight to cut. It's not going to be safe. Talked about that in last week's episode, Ultimate Fighter 30 recap for episode 4. But Coates making a fast recovery, already has the fight booked, so she'll be back in action soon enough. Then we've got more UFC news. Another bout added to the August 13th event. Alexa Grasso taking on Viviane Araújo at flyweight. And I believe I think that's the main event. Let me see here. Let me just look this up real quick. I believe that is the main event. Tapology doesn't have it listed yet, but I think that's the main event. So that's a 5-round fight. It'll be interesting to see Araújo in a 5-round battle. That should be a fun fight, period. I talked about that in its own video. And then also at flyweight for UFC, September 3rd in Paris, we've got the number 1 ranked flyweight, Katlyn Chookagian, taking on the number, 6 flyweight in Manon Fiorot. Woo, that's a good one. Likely decides the next title challenger. Then Aries 7 goes down later this month, June 25th in Paris. And that's going to be live on UFC Fight Pass. I'll tell you what, Aries puts on some good events. Very high quality, high production values, good matchmaking for a young promotion. I like it. Anyway, it's going down June 25th in Paris. They've booked a bantamweight bout. Rizlan Zoak taking on Ioni Razafiarson. And those two are legit former training partners. And it's not like, how it's advertised like, oh, they're 2 former training partners about ready to face off. But it turns out, they trained together like a couple times, or like they helped each other out for one fight camp. No, these two used to be actual teammates, trained together every day at some point. So we've got a bit of a grudge match here. Should be good. Then UFC has an event scheduled for September 10th. They've added a featherweight bout. Norma Dumont taking on the debuting Danielle Wolf. So yeah, not only is Danielle Wolf still alive, but she's taking on Norma Dumont. That's going to be a hard fight for her. I don't think it'll be an easy fight for Dumont either, because Wolf has like some pretty significant size advantage on her, like height and reach wise. But man, I think that experience factor in favor of Dumont is going to be very hard for Danielle Wolf to overcome. Then what else we got? Bellator 285 goes down September 23rd in Dublin, Ireland. They've added a featherweight bout. Leah McCourt taking on Diana Silva. So McCourt coming off of a loss to, what is her name? Other Irish girl. Kavanagh, Sinead Kavanagh. Whereas Diana Silva's coming off a win over Janae Harding. Actually, both of these ladies have wins over Janae Harding. Should be a good bout there at featherweight. Also in the news, this is one I was really happy to see. UFC has signed bantamweight Lucia Putilova back to the promotion with a fight to be announced. So Putilova, if you haven't been following, has gone 5-1 since leaving the UFC in early 2020. So over the past 2 years, she's had 6 fights, winning 5 of them. Really excited to see Lucia back in the UFC octagon. You know, she's not exactly a finisher, but she's almost always in exciting fights. Rarely ever in a boring fight. You know, I like to call her a TV fighter in that she makes for good television. Then also UFC has also signed another Brazilian bantamweight, this time out of Brazil, Tainara Lisboa, who comes in with a record of 5-2. I think all 5 of her wins are by finish. So it should be another fun one. Then we've got another UFC bout, although I have not found a date for this one yet. Cheyenne Vlismas taking on Tabitha Ricci at strawweight. So date to be announced for that one. That's a good one too. Both unranked at strawweight, but starting to work their way up. Then we have Ryzen 36 goes down July 2nd. Ryzen's going back to the island of Okinawa, and they've added 2 super atomweight bouts. First up, we have Mizuki Nisei Oshiro taking on Morari Suda in a battle of young prospects. Well, I won't call Oshiro a prospect, but she is a fun fighter to watch. And then we have Miyu Yamamoto taking on Sao Oshima. That fight is going to be good. We've got like world-class wrestling taking on very high-level judo. That's going to be a good one. I made a video about both of those fights. In one, it's like a 2-in-1 video. Definitely go check that out after the show, though. I go a little bit more in depth on both of those. Then we have UFC, another one for September 3rd. That's the Paris event. A featherweight bout. Zara Fairn, who honestly I had forgotten was even still. Excuse me. Zara Fairn, who admittedly I forgot was even still on the roster. Excuse me. She's going to be taking on a newcomer, Aylan Perez. And Perez is actually a bantamweight out of Brazil. With a record of 7-1. I'm sorry, she's not out of Brazil. She is out of Argentina. Apparently, she has a Sandoz style, which should be fun. But she is 7-1. Finish. 5 out of 7 wins come via finish. So that's a fun one. And you know how it is, sometimes they sign these fighters in the one weight class and then they go back down. If she goes back down to bantamweight, that's another, after this bout, that's going to be another fun one. That's UFC signed 3 new bantamweights in the last 7 days. Well, Lucia Putilova, who's returning after a while out and getting other fights. Tainara Lisboa, who's 5-2, and then Alan Perez, who is 7-1. And the Brazilian and the Argentinian are both finishers. So looks like UFC is really trying to build the bantamweight division back up then. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. Because that division has been hurting for a long time. Long time. I mean, they've just... I don't want to get into that in this right now because I could go on for probably about 5 minutes alone on that. But also big announcement. The next PFL event to feature the ladies is going to be on July 1st. All the lightweight bouts. We've got Kayla Harrison versus Julia Budd, which might as well get that one done now because that is a fight that I think everybody was wanting to see when Budd got signed to PFL, being the former Bellator featherweight champ. And then after Budd lost her last bout to Jenna Fabian, I think PFL just figured, well, we might as well make that bout now in case Budd loses her next fight as well and doesn't make it to the playoffs. So I like that matchup. We've got Larissa Pacheco versus Jenna Fabian, which is okay. Marina Maknatkina versus Abigail Montez should be a good one. Martina Jindrova taking on Zamzagul Faizalanova. And then Olena Kolesnik taking on Vanessa Mello. Basically, it's all of the winners from the last PFL ladies event taking on all the losers, which I really hate that PFL does that. Because they talk about, this is all about earning your way through and all that stuff. But with the regular season matchups, they're usually set up to be like squash matches, which I hate. If you're going to do that, then don't do the regular season. Just do the tournament and seed it. Anyway, moving along. Fury FC 65 goes down June 26th. That's going to be on Fight Pass. They added a strawweight bout. Macy Bro taking on Taylor Malden. I could be wrong, but I think both of those fighters have fought in Invicta at one point. And then another bout for UFC's September 10th event. They've added strawweight Hannah Cyphers, or is it Cyphers? Hannah Cyphers taking on newcomer to the promotion, Melissa Supermelli Martinez. And that is a signing I am very excited for. If you're not familiar with Martinez, she hasn't fought in MMA since 2020, maybe 2019. Holy crap. December of 2019. So Supermelli, Melissa Martinez, she's undefeated at 7-0. And she was the strawweight champion of Combate Global back when they were still calling themselves Combate Americas. And here's what I'm really hoping for. Supermelli wins this. Another bout I mentioned earlier. This is in what? September. When does Yasmin Hawagi fight? August. I'm hoping that Supermelli beats Cyphers. And then Yasmin Hawagi beats Nunes back in August. And then UFC can put together a battle of Mexican strikers that Combate wished they would have been able to accomplish. But Supermelli hasn't fought in a while. She's actually been fighting, doing a lot of kickboxing. So hopefully she's not rusty as far as MMA is concerned. Then we have UFC has a bout scheduled for October 1st. They booked a bantamweight bout. Leah Letson moving back down to bantamweight from featherweight, taking on newcomer Invicta veteran Chelsea Chandler. That should be a good one. Chelsea Chandler has a small but very vocal fan base. So, and then final bit of news for this week, which we've been on for almost 20 minutes now. LFA has an event on July 29th. that'll be airing on UFC Fight Pass. Strawweight, Jasmine Pouncey taking on Alandria Brown. Now, if you go look up Alandria Brown's last fight in LFA, she fought Sydney Trillo in an absolute war. So really looking forward to what those two can do against each other. Jasmine Pouncey versus Alandria Brown, but very excited to see Alandria Brown get back in there. Whew. So that is it. That is all the news for this week. That's about 3 weeks worth, honestly. But a lot of it was just from the last 3 days. UFC just with a ton of fight announcements and signings within the last 3 days. Amazing. Really happy with, well, 2 of the fighters they signed, I'm completely unfamiliar with. That Tainara Lisboa and that Eileen Perez. Not familiar with them. But most of the signings I'm really happy with. And especially they're finally booking some new bantamweights. Which I was saying earlier, UFC has needed bantamweights, new blood in the bantamweight division for a long time. And they need some excitement in that division as well. So I'm really happy about that. But man, has a lot of news to go through. Anyway, no ranking updates this week because, well, there's no UFC or Bellator this past weekend. So let's get into this weekend's fights. So first up, nope, much better. We have one championship 158, which goes down tomorrow morning if you're in the U.S. One ladies bout in the one championship atomweight 115-pound division. Jenna Olsum taking on Julie Maza Barba. So Olsum coming in at 5-3. Maza Barba coming in at 9-3-1. Both ladies coming in off of a loss in their last fight. Olsum to Ritu Phogat 6 months ago. Maza Barba to Stamp Fairtex at the same event. At the same event to Stamp Fairtex. That was in the second round of the one women's atomweight world Grand Prix. So that was back in, I want to say October or November. But both had some wins stacked up before then. Olsum is the younger fighter, 25-29 for Maza Barba. They stand pretty much the same height. 5 feet 3 inches for both. Olsum's 1 centimeter taller, 161 centimeters to 160 centimeters. I'm going to go with Jenna Olsum to win this one. I just have not been impressed with Maza Barba. Like, she looked really good against Mai Yamaguchi in her one championship debut. But now I'm starting to think that has just as much to do with Mai Yamaguchi being on like a really steep downslide lately. Whereas Olsum, she's 3-2 in one championship. And she's looked good in her wins. And even in her loss to Ritu Phogat, I thought she looked really good in that loss and was giving Phogat a lot of trouble. Like, had her hurt, had her wobbled, held her own on the ground, and was threatening submissions. I got to go with Olsum. I just think she's an overall better fighter from what I've seen of the two of them. So I'm going to go with Jenna Olsum to win that one. So that is early tomorrow morning in the U.S. And it is, I think, the second fight on the card. Yeah, that is the second bout on the card. Starts 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. No, 5:30 a.m. on the East Coast of the U.S. is when the event starts. So get up, set your alarms for that one. Then tomorrow night, Friday night, we have Combate Global, a strawweight bout. Gloria Bravo Barrios on the left, taking on Yahaira Cunningham on the right. Gloriosa on the left, Barrios coming in at 6-5. Cunningham coming in at 4-3. Now, Gloria Bravo coming in off of two straight wins. An armbar win 8 months ago, and then a decision 2 weeks later. Wow. She fought 2 times in a month. Cunningham is coming off of a win over Kayla Rocco about 2 months ago via split decision. Both of their recent fights have been in combate. Let's see here. Cunningham is the younger fighter, 30 to 35. Bravo has the height advantage, 5 feet 5 inches, 165 centimeters to 5'2", 157 centimeters for Cunningham. This should be a good one. I mean, this should definitely be a fun fight. From what I can remember of both of these fighters, they have fun styles. But that's about all I can honestly remember about them. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to do my homework on this bout. But mainly because I didn't even know it was happening until yesterday. Just because Combate is the worst at actually promoting their fights and letting people know who's fighting and when. So flip a coin on this one, I guess. But that is tomorrow night on Combate Global. You can watch it on Paramount Plus, which is subscription, or you can watch it on Univision for free. That will be with Spanish subtitles. Well, by the way, for the people that are watching live, the chat is open. If you have any questions, compliments, complaints, or just want to say, hey, you're doing a good job. Then Saturday night, we've got UFC Fight Night, Volkov versus Rosenstrike. God help us, another Rosenstrike main event. But we've got 3 ladies bouts, each with something different to offer. First up, a flyweight bout. Erin Cold-Blooded Blanchfield taking on JJ Aldrich. Looking forward to this one. Blanchfield coming in at 8-1. Aldrich coming in at 11-4. Aldrich undefeated in the UFC in 2 wins. First up over Sarah Alpar 8 months ago, then defeated Miranda Maverick, absolutely dominated Miranda Maverick 5 months ago, en route to decision. JJ Aldrich riding a 3-fight win streak over Courtney Casey, Vanessa Demopoulos, and then Jillian Robertson just over 2.5 months ago. Looks like Aldrich is the elder fighter, 29-23 for Blanchfield. Aldrich slightly taller, 5 feet 5 inches, 165 centimeters to 5 feet 4 inches, 163 centimeters for Blanchfield. But then it gets reversed on the reach. 68 inches, 173 centimeters for Blanchfield to 67.5 inches, 171 centimeters for JJ Aldrich. I like this bout. Why this is the fight card opener, I'm not sure. I think this bout deserves to be much higher. In fact, I think Blanchfield is ranked at number 15. Look that up real quick. No, she's just outside the rankings right now. For some reason, Tracy Cortez is ranked above her. So neither fighter is ranked, but both of them are just outside the rankings. On the feet, I got to give the advantage to Aldrich. She is a very clean striker, very technical, very textbook striker. Doesn't get wild, keeps everything, sticks to the fundamentals, is how I should put it, which I love that about JJ Aldrich. Very sticks to the fundamentals, doesn't get sloppy. Blanchfield is still putting things together on the feet. She's improved a lot from her MMA debut, but that's because when she came into MMA, she was pretty much just a grappler. On the ground, I got to go with Blanchfield. So really, how this one goes Depends on where the fight, on what area the fight goes to. Because if it stays on the feet, I got to give the advantage to Blanchfield. If it goes to Aldrich, excuse me. If it goes to the ground, I got to go with Blanchfield. Blanchfield's got to get it there against Aldrich, and Aldrich isn't easy to take down. That said, I got to make a pick. Everyone expects me to make a pick. I'm going to go with Aaron Blanchfield to win this one. You probably can't see the names because of the news banner, but it's Blanchfield's on the left there. So Aaron Blanchfield to beat Aldrich, probably by decision. So then we go to strawweight. And you look at this bout and you got to think, okay, losers got to be heading towards retirement, right? We've got Felice Herrig taking on Karolina Kovalekic. Two fighters that I really like and are both on a downslide right now. And it's really sad to see. And this fight's... Last time they fought, I was kind of excited. It was bittersweet last time these two fought. This is a rematch. Last time they fought, it was bittersweet because I liked both, and I hated to see one of them lose. This is just... I still like them both, but man, this is sad. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into the stats. The little bulldog Herrig coming in at 14-9. Kovalekic coming in at 12-7. Now, Herrig is on a 3-fight losing streak. Last fought a year and 9 months ago, losing via armbar to Verna Jandiroba. Kovalekic, unfortunately, is on a 5-fight losing streak. Her last win was the victory against Felice Herrig. That was in April of 2018. So 4 years ago was Kovalekic's last win. Ooh. But her last fight was a submission loss to Jessica Penny 9 months ago. Age. Kovalekic is 1 year younger, 36-37 for Herrig. Herrig slightly taller, 5 feet 4 inches, 163 centimeters to 5 feet 3 inches, 160 centimeters for Kovalekic. Reach also goes to Herrig, 65 inches, 165 centimeters to 64 inches, 163 centimeters for Kovalekic. God, talking about this fight just really has me down now. Damn. I don't know who to pick in this one. I don't. They both look bad in their recent outings. Kovalekic has at least fought more recently. I mean, Herrig's last fight was almost 2 years ago. But Kovalekic just looks gun shy. She looks lost out there. Oh, I don't know. One thing I like is that Kovalekic, probably too late. I mean, definitely too late, I think, in her career, has actually taken her training outside of Lodz, Poland. She's been at training at ATT, American Top Team, alongside Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Maybe that change of surroundings will help her turn it around. But as for who wins, I have no idea who wins this bout. I just have no idea. But the winner should, the loser should definitely retire. The winner should also consider it as well. So then, final fight we'll talk about for this weekend is going to be at flyweight. Poliana Botelho welcoming newcomer from Dana White's Contender Series, Karine Silva. So Botelho coming in at 8-4. Killer Karine Silva coming in at 14-4. Botelho riding a 2-fight skid here. Last fought a year ago losing to Luana Carolina via split decision. Silva comes in on how many fights win streak is she on? 5-fight win streak. Most recently defeated Yan Jihi back in October for the Contender Series. Minute 44 seconds of the second round. Looked nice submission win there. Let's see. Botelho's the elder of the two, 33 to 28 for Silva. She's taller as well, 5 feet 8 inches, 173 centimeters for Botelho, to 5 feet 5 inches, 165 centimeters for Silva. The reach, however, is identical, 67 inches, 170 centimeters. I'm going to go with Silva to win this one. Going to go with Killer Karini Silva to win. And I'll tell you why. Silva's younger. She's hungrier. She's new to the UFC. She's coming in. She wants to make a good impression. And Botelho has not been looking good lately. I mean, you look at her last two fights, lost to Jillian Robertson a year and a half ago, and then to Luana Carolina, who fought to a split decision, but I think she just did not fight smart to against Carolina. But I'm going to go with Karini Silva on the right-hand side there to win this one. So that is it for your weekend preview. We've got Easy E in the chat saying, I didn't even know these two were still signed in the UFC. Must be talking about Kovalekic versus Herrig. Easy E, your avatar there, Liberty City Wrath. Is that Liberty City, Florida? Just curious. Looks like a semi-pro or arena football team. Anyway, that is it for the weekend preview. And I still have my news banner up like an idiot. So, let's get into some discussion time here. I want to talk about setting and managing expectations for fights. Now, I've seen some things recently, some footage online. You know, I like to scope out other content creators in the MMA YouTube community, not whether it's WMA or men's MMA or, you know, just fighter or channels that most channels cover both. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, but especially more recently. I've been thinking about this for a while, I should say, but especially more recently. It just seems like people have weird expectations regarding certain fights, but then are far more willing to forgive others that they like. I mean, we're talking about holding lower level fighters to higher expectations than these same people will hold like champions that they like. And it just doesn't, I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. So I wanted to talk about setting and managing expectations for fights. On the thumbnail there, I have part 1. I was going to split this up into 2 parts, but I decided to do this all in one show. So what do I mean by setting and managing expectations? I'm talking about, you see a fight announced, and you've got to properly assess both fighters in that fight and then go, well, okay, so this fighter is at this level, the opponent's at this level, so my expectations for the fight are somewhere in between those two, is a good example. Or let's say it's a championship fight. So you've got a really high-level champion taking on a really high-level challenger. So you would naturally, I think, expect them to be higher, that fight to be high and be really good. Whereas if it's like 2 UFC debutantes, then obviously your expectations should be really like way down here. So you should set your expectations and manage them accordingly. And the most recent UFC fight night, I think, gave some really good examples about people just setting weird expectations or abnormal expectations on certain levels of fights. So let's start in, let me enlarge this real quick. In the top right corner, we have the strawweight bout where Sam Hughes defeated Elise Reed. All I saw after this fight were people trashing both of these fighters. And for some reason, a lot of people were trashing Sam Hughes. And I didn't really get it. Well, for one thing, why are you trashing the fighter who won? That didn't make much sense to me. I mean, it's not like she looked like shit and still managed to win, which I've seen, and I have, held winning fighters' feet to the fire before. If they say they exposed a big time weakness and just barely got by in the win. But here's the thing. I went into this fight with no expectations because both fighters are low level, they're unranked, and they haven't really performed very well in the fights that they've shown anything in. I mean, Sam Hughes, plus you have two fighters who both of them got signed based on being short notice replacement fighters and basically fought like short notice replacement fighters in their debuts and then haven't really shown much growth since then. So I didn't have any expectations out of that fight. What expectations I might have had were very low. But then I saw people getting really mad and trashing both fighters and trashing this fight. And it's like, you set way too high of expectations for two lower level unranked UFC fighters. Now, if this were, say, maybe 10 years ago, when the UFC was only trying to bring in the best fighters available in the women's divisions, and they performed badly, then sure, okay, go ahead and absolutely trash it. And I'm not saying you can't call a bad fight a bad fight. I'm saying you've got to manage expectations. This isn't the UFC of 10 years ago. It is 2022 event almost every weekend of the year UFC, where they are just booking fights and creating content to fill a time slot, or basically making content for ESPN Plus at this point. Not every fighter is going to be a world beater in today's UFC. That's just how it is. And that's honestly how I looked at this fight. And then another example would be the next fight down below, also at strawweight, where Tabitha Ricci defeated Poliana Viana. And people were saying that this fight underperformed. But my question is, underperformed compared to what? Again, this is another fight that I did not set high expectations for. And it lived up to those low expectations. Look, you have two unranked fighters. Okay. Viana has been very inconsistent in the UFC. Then you got Tabitha Ricci, who before coming to the UFC never faced a fighter with a winning record. She came into the UFC with only 5 fights to her name, and she had never faced a fighter with a winning record. So my expectations for her are low until she starts showing me something that tells me that I should expect more out of her. So you have an inconsistent unranked fighter versus a low-level unranked fighter, a fairly inexperienced unranked fighter. And people are saying, well, this fight underperformed. Again, I got to ask, what did it underperform compared to? That's what I want to know. That's my question. What did it underperform compared to? What expectations were you setting for two unranked fighters, one of whom is inconsistent and one of whom is very inexperienced compared to her peers? Again, you've got to manage expectations. I had low expectations out of this fight. It lived up to those low expectations. Now, is that to say that I'm not disappointed? No, I'm still disappointed that it wasn't a very good fight. I'm very disappointed that it wasn't a good fight because I want to see these ladies perform well. But I'm not going to get like PO'd when they don't perform well because I don't set high expectations for lower level fights, especially when I know what to expect from both fighters. And I knew what to expect from these two. Not much. Not much. And what did they deliver? Not much. Again, do I want more? Yes. Am I going to get excited when they do deliver more? Yeah, I'm going to be happy. But I'm not going to get mad when they don't perform well. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not going to get mad when they live up to my expectations if my expectations are down here. Period. Now, let's talk about the middle ground. Those middling grounds here. So we had low expectations. Now we have middling expectations. And this is where you really got to be careful about what you expect from fighters and setting expectations and managing them. We had the main event of the night. We had two top 10 bantamweights, perennial contender Holly Holm and Ketlen Vieira. Holm and Vieira. Now, this is the main event bout. In some ways, you should expect a good fight from these two. That's what you should expect because they're two top 10 fighters. One of them is top 5 and the other's top 10. And at one point, a couple years back, was like considered a young up and coming prospect on the cusp of title contention. Of course, now Vieira is in title contention, having beaten Holm. But so I think it is natural to expect bigger things from this bout because of where they are in the rankings and everything. However, you have to remember who these fighters are. Holm isn't known for being particularly exciting. Does she occasionally have some fun, exciting fights? Yes. But for the most part, what does she do? She point fights her way to decisions. And Vieira, on the other hand, Vieira has been very inconsistent the last few years. Pretty much ever since she messed her knee up and had knee surgery, she's been very inconsistent. So, yeah, I can understand having higher expectations for this bout, but at the same time, you've got to lower them a little bit. So you can set the high expectations, but then you've also got to remember to manage those expectations because you've got a point fighter versus an inconsistent fighter. So you've got to bring those expectations a little bit lower and manage them. So that is a good example of a middling fight where, yeah, you kind of want to set higher expectations, but got to maybe bring them back down a little bit because of who it is. So let's talk about setting higher expectations. The type of fights you expect, and you should maybe set higher expectations and expect more out of the fighters, would be like two top 5 level fighters #1 contender fight, or even bigger championship bouts. Okay, that is when your expectations should be super high, super high. Championship level fights should be way up here, actually way up here for championship bouts. You should be setting high expectations from that. And when they don't deliver, you should be very disappointed. Most recent example being the strawweight championship bout, the rematch of Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. I think everybody had high expectations for Rose Namajunas in that bout. And then she failed to deliver. Absolutely failed. Now, Esparza, people didn't expect as much out of her. And she actually failed to deliver even just as much, too. Not as much as Rose, but she definitely failed to deliver, I think, to live up even to the expectations people had for her. So that should have been a very good fight, a rematch, years in the making. Great story behind it, too. The rematch of the inaugural strawweight championship, years in the making. The former champ taking on the fighter that she beat in the first fight, who is the sitting champ now. And that fight should have delivered. That fight absolutely should have delivered, and it failed to. That is an example of where if you set high expectations for that, I don't blame you. And if you were disappointed, again, I don't blame you. I was disappointed with that fight myself. That fight absolutely sucked. It totally failed to deliver. Now, let's move on to part 2 of this discussion. Part 2 is, I think it's weird that people were setting higher expectations for, say, these low-level fights, like the 2 strawweight bouts here, Reed versus Hughes and Viana versus Ricci. But yet, when some fighters don't deliver, when some, say, very popular championship level fighters don't deliver, people don't get up. People don't seem to get as upset. And I don't understand that. I think those are the fighters that need to be held accountable the most. And it seems that depending on popularity, they can get away with fairly underwhelming performances. And I think fans need to start holding these fighters more accountable for garbage fights. Okay. Rose versus Carla. That was a fight that, honestly, I think we saw a bit of a turnaround because people expected good things out of that fight and it did not deliver at all. And people, frankly, held them both to the fire. So I think that might be a sign of possibly things to come, which is good. But the history doesn't necessarily show that. Okay. So let's talk about fights that expectations were high, didn't deliver, and for some reason, people don't seem to get mad about. Okay. Trigger warning for all the Simpchenkos out there. For all the Simpchenkos, you're going to get triggered. Let's talk about Valentina Shevchenko versus Liz Carmouche #2. That fight was complete trash. If people talk about Namajunas versus Esparza 2 being trash, how about a fight, a championship bout that was so bad, they cut the challenger afterwards. They actually cut a title challenger because the fight overall was so bad. That fight, it was the main event championship bout in a fight night in a brand new market. What country was that even in? I'm trying to remember. Now I'm curious. It was a brand new market for the UFC, and they booked a popular champion to main event it. And that fight sucked the air out of the place. That was UFC on ESPN Plus #14. That was in Uruguay, Montevideo, Uruguay. Brand new market for the UFC, and that fight just both fighters got booed. Boo. It was an absolutely garbage fight. But did anybody hold Shevchenko accountable? Besides me, I didn't really see it. Most people were like, well, that was on Carmouche to take the fight to Shevchenko because she's the challenger. No, I'm sorry. You've got to hold. It takes two people to make a fight, and you've got to hold champions accountable for shitty fights. And nobody wants to hold Shevchenko accountable for an absolute trash fight. Well, I am right now. Okay. I see someone that people call a dominant champion. That wasn't a dominant performance. That was garbage. That was two fighters who didn't want to engage against the other. And people can say, well, it's on the challenger to take the fight to the champ. Well, how about it's on the dominant champion to show her dominance against the challenger, especially when she's such a huge favorite against everyone she faces. I'm sorry, that fight was a stinker. And I think both fighters need to be held accountable. Well, obviously, Carmouche was. She got cut. And honestly, I think if Shevchenko wasn't the champ, they probably would have cut her after that too, because it wouldn't be the first time UFC cut fighters who didn't perform in main events. Sticking with triggering the Shevchenkos, how about Valentina versus Lauren Murphy? Up until the moment Valentina landed that head kick in the fourth round and finally saw the finish, that fight sucked. That fight absolutely sucked. Lauren Murphy was absolutely outgunned in that fight. That was like one of the biggest betting odd differences in UFC history. And it took Shevchenko to the fourth round to finish someone that everybody was saying had no business in there against her. And Shevchenko what did Shevchenko do? She played her usual defense first. I'm not going to engage unless you engage fight. But after the first round, Lauren Murphy was gun shy. Did Shevchenko go on the offense? No. She did not go for the finish until it basically was handed to her on a silver platter. I didn't have high expectations for Lauren Murphy going into that bout. I did have high expectations for Valentina Shevchenko. And I think everybody expected her to demolish Lauren Murphy. And it went into the fourth round. We've got to hold these so-called dominant champions, these popular champions, to higher expectations. We've got to hold them accountable for when they don't deliver in fights. Now, granted, okay, people can say, but she got the finish. She got the finish. It shouldn't have taken her to the fourth round. It should not. The odds in that fight were so far apart, and everybody expected her to absolutely demolish Lauren Murphy. She should have had her out within 2 rounds. Instead, it went into the championship rounds. Right? Yeah. Round 4. 4 minutes of the fourth round is the official time for that fight. Let's hold another dominant champion accountable. Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes has a bad habit of underperforming in fights too. And sometimes people hold her accountable, and other times they don't. But she's delivered some bad performances. For example, the Felicia Spencer fight. She should have finished Felicia Spencer. She could have, and she just rode it out to the decision. And I don't understand it. Maybe she was gassed. Maybe I don't know what was going on with that fight. But Amanda Nunes should have finished Felicia Spencer. She had it in her. Rode it out to a boring 5-round decision. Absolutely boring, uneventful fight. Really disappointing from Nunes. And she should be held accountable for that because she is the dominant champ. Popular or not, greatest of all time or not, she should be held accountable when she delivers boring fights. Or, here's another one. The second Germaine Durandamy fight. Durandamy. Talking about someone that she finished the first time they fought back in 2013. Finished in the first round. Second fight, absolutely boring decision. Absolutely boring decision. Nunes just took GDR down. Really didn't want to mess with GDR on the feet. Instead, took her down and just did nothing on the ground. Gassed out early, too. Did not show the improved cardio that we had expected from her in that fight. Instead, she got tired and just rode out the win. Terrible fight from Nunes in that one. Went to a decision against someone she defeated easily in the first fight. So that's another one. Another time when a so-called dominant champion should have been held more accountable. Now, it's not just the ladies, y'all. It's not just the ladies. The male champions need to be held accountable for garbage fights too. Here's a big one. Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. That fight was absolute dog turds. Okay? That was Amber Turd level fight. Okay? That fight was terrible. People had high expectations for that fight. And it just absolutely did not deliver at all. And a lot of people were ready to trash Yoel Romero. And he deserves it. But it seemed like nobody wanted to trash Adesanya when they should have. I'm sorry. If a champion doesn't deliver in a fight, they need to be held accountable. If you have high expectations going into a fight for absolute excitement, it's not just one fighter that needs to be held accountable. It's both fighters that need to be held accountable. And nobody wants to hold Adesanya accountable when he has boring fights. That fight, like I said, it was Amber Turd. Terrible fight. Terrible fight. But nobody wants to hold Adesanya accountable for it. People, we need to hold champions accountable when they have garbage fights, okay? The whole idea that, well, it's on the challenger to take the fight to the champion. No. We need to expect more from the champions, okay? A champion should never just want to go in there and do the bare minimum in order to hold on to the belt. No, we need to expect championship level fights from champions. Okay? Hold these champions accountable when their fights suck. Okay? If you're a champion, you should want to go out there and prove why you're the champion. Not just do the bare minimum to get the win. You should want to go out there and prove I'm the champion and here's why. And go out there and absolutely dominate all the way to the decision, if not absolutely destroy the competition. Okay? A lot of people like to trash GSP for being boring, but guess what? GSP was rarely ever in a fight where people questioned his dominance. Or Robbie Lawler, when he was the welterweight champ, that dude didn't deliver boring fights. No, that dude went out there to fight. He went out there to prove that he was a champion. What was it? Was it the second fight against the Red King? What's his name? The Canadian? When he's like bleeding, he's got a split freaking upper lip, and he's like, I'm out here to show you that I'm the champ and I'm here to stay. That's what I want to see from a champion. A champion that goes out there to show everyone why They are the champ. None of this. Champion just does whatever, does just enough to get the win, keep the belt. Everyone goes, oh, yeah, you're the best. You're the best. It's on the challenger to prove, to take it to the champ. No, stop this, people. Stop this. Hold champions accountable when the fights suck. And that's all I have on that. So let's go to the chat. Ooh, Easy E, very busy. Everyone else in the chat, you're slacking. Easy E says, it's weird to me how WMMA gets so much hate. I mean, I get some fights are boring, but most of the women come to scrap. I agree. I've seen way more boring men's fights than women's fights. Yeah, people. Yeah. Problem is, WMMA just has, the women just have straight up haters, and they're going to hate on it no matter what. But here's the thing. I don't make my videos for the haters. I don't care. I don't worry about them. They're the minority. Because if they were the majority, the UFC wouldn't have women's fights. Bellator wouldn't have women's fights. The fact is, the market is there. The UFC knows it. And the haters can just keep on hating. After seeing Holmes' performance and hearing she wants to box again, I'm not thinking her fighting in any capacity is a good idea. Father Time is undefeated. Yeah, I mean, well, her being 39 years old, coming off a 2-year layoff, I definitely did not expect much from her in that bout. And honestly, I think she underperformed even compared to those expectations. Liberty City Wrath is actually a fictional football team from a video game, by the way. Oh, okay. Oh, is Liberty City the is that from Grand Theft Auto? Because isn't Liberty City like the name for the fictional version of Miami in that game? It says, I'm shocked people still think Shevchenko won the second fight against Nunes. She clearly lost that fight, in my opinion. Oh, talk about another garbage fight. That fight was terrible. Says Shevchenko wants Pena to beat Amanda again because I think she believes Pena would be an easy fight to get the 135 belt. Yeah, I can see that, and I wouldn't blame her for thinking that either. People don't want to talk about Pena actually winning their fight until that's debatable. I think she won the first round. And then it ended in the second. And Easy E says, I really think Pena would beat Shevchenko if she got a second chance at her. Hey, she might. I mean, nobody was expecting her to beat Nunes. Well, maybe not nobody, but very few people were expecting her to beat Nunes. I mean, she was a big underdog there. She probably would be a big underdog against Shevchenko. Maybe not as big as like Shevchenko's flyweight opponents, but she'd definitely be the underdog. But we'll see. I want to see Shevchenko's. I'd rather Shevchenko stay at flyweight. I'm tired of the whole double champ thing. It's played out. It really has gotten played out at this point. So, anybody else got anything in the chat before we wrap up? No? All right. So, we're going to get ready to wrap up here. Now, before we get ready to wrap up, first off, if you're watching this and you haven't hit that like button, shame on you. Show your boy some love. Plus, the more likes the stream gets, the better the stream does. The more people are drawn to it by the YouTube algorithm. So hit that like button. At least it'll help people, more people watch it on the replay. The chat is open up until the moment I end this video. Now, I do have a bunch of videos I just released within the past day or two. Let me go down. Let me bring up the look here and tell you what you need to go check out. So the recap for Tough 30 episode 5 is up. Go check that out. I did a video for Ryzen 36, the two ladies bouts on there. I went into more depth on those two matchups. Go check them out. Go check that one out. I think both fights have something to offer. I had a video that triggered at least one person talking about an article from AsianMMA.com where Weili Zhang heard that Rose Namajunas offered to help train Joanna. And in my opinion, Weili got a little bit salty and butthurt when she found out, and then even got a little bit hypocritical. But that's my thoughts. Go check that video out. I want to hear more opinions. I need more feedback on it. I did a review for Jade Durand versus Marina Pichel at Combate. That was a good fight. Again, I went in there with low expectations, and that fight exceeded them. And then just 2 hours ago, I released a video talking about the UFC signing Invicta strawweight champ Emily Ducote. She is replacing Brianna Fortino against Jessica Penny in next month in July. Good for Emily Ducote getting signed. She got the raw end of the stick at Bellator. Did okay there, but she was fighting up in weight. Got released from Bellator, went back to strawweight, got a win, and then went on a bit of a tear in Invicta. She is the reigning defending strawweight champion there, but now she's in the UFC. Good for her. Taking on Jessica Penny on relatively short notice, about a month's notice. So go check those videos out. But until then, that's really all I have. Oh, don't forget to subscribe to WMMA Scene Now, the best, most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. It'll at least notify you when I go live. Easy E says, I think Rose wanting to help Joanna is really weird. I think, yeah, it was weird. It was out of nowhere. But it's Rose. She's pretty out there to begin with, LOL. Yeah, she's a weirdo. But I think Weili's reaction to it was really weird as well. Like, who cares, Weili? Focus on you. Focus on you. Focus on Joanna. Don't worry about Rose. Anyway, that's it. I'm out. Everyone have a good night.